Rowan Atkinson's story is not just one of comedy, but one of conquering the invisible chains that ties so many people down: rejection, insecurity, and being underestimated for who they are. Born in Consett, County Durham, England, Rowan Atkinson was not the boy anyone would have voted most likely to succeed. In fact, his childhood was marked by painful stammering, social awkwardness, and a face that didn't conform to the classic ideals of Hollywood charm. He wasn't the loudest in the room, he wasn't the most popular, and he certainly wasn't seen as the face of global entertainment. But deep inside that quiet boy was a spark, an understanding of the human condition so precise and profound that it would one day create one of the most iconic and beloved characters the world has ever seen: Mr. Bean. And it didn't happen overnight. Rowan faced rejection at nearly every turn. Teachers dismissed his potential, peers laughed at his stammer, and casting directors couldn't see past his unique face and speech. They said he couldn't speak properly. They said his face wasn't right for TV. They said he just didn't have it. But Rowan wasn't trying to be like anyone else. He knew that fitting in would mean erasing who he truly was. And so, instead of chasing approval, he began to craft something utterly original. He studied engineering at Oxford, quietly sharpening his mind while his passion for acting began to bubble beneath the surface. While most people would have stayed in their lane, stuck to the safety of a respectable career, Rowan listened to the whisper inside that told him he was made for something more. That whisper grew louder every time someone laughed at him, every time someone doubted him, every time someone said he couldn't. And while others saw his stammer as a weakness, Rowan found a way to turn silence into art. Mr. Bean was born, not from clever words or loud punchlines, but from pure expressive genius. A man who didn't need language to be understood. A character who used silence to speak louder than words ever could. And in doing so, Rowan changed the world. Mr. Bean became a global phenomenon, breaking language barriers and reaching hearts in every culture. The boy who couldn't speak became the man whose silence made the world laugh. But Rowan's journey wasn't just about fame, it was about proving that your so-called flaws are actually your greatest gifts. He didn't hide from his differences. He embraced them, molded them, and built an empire from them. He showed the world that being different isn't a curse. It's your superpower. The world might try to fit you into a box, but Rowan shattered that box into pieces. For every person who's ever been told they weren't good enough, attractive enough, loud enough, or smart enough, Rowan's story is a beacon of hope. He didn't let the noise of rejection drown out the quiet voice of belief. He taught us that your uniqueness is not something to be ashamed of, it's your golden ticket. His success wasn't a fluke, it was forged in the fire of self-belief and relentless authenticity. When the world said no, he created a yes that echoed louder than anyone imagined. His journey reminds us that you don't need to change who you are to be successful. You just need to become more of who you are. Because when you finally stop trying to be someone else, that's when the world starts noticing you. Rowan Atkinson didn't just make people laugh. He made them believe. He turned rejection into revolution. He showed the quiet ones, the awkward ones, the different ones, that they, too, can own the spotlight. And most importantly, he proved that you don't need a perfect voice to make yourself heard. You just need the courage to use the one you've got. And yet, the story of Rowan Atkinson doesn't end with the birth of Mr. Bean. It only begins there, because the true triumph wasn't in becoming famous, it was in remaining authentic in a world that constantly tries to reshape originality into conformity. Rowan could have cashed in on his success and followed the path of commercial stardom, but he remained deeply connected to the art of performance, not the applause. Every time he stepped into Mr. Bean's shoes, he wasn't just acting. He was telling every person watching that it's okay to be awkward, it's okay to be silent, it's okay to be different. He gave the misfits a hero who never had to speak to be loved, and that message echoed far beyond the TV screen. Behind the exaggerated expressions and hilarious mishaps was a quiet, thoughtful man who had overcome personal struggles that millions could relate to. Struggles of self-worth, anxiety, and the ever-present fear of not being enough. But Rowan showed us that you don't have to eliminate your fears to succeed. You only have to keep moving in spite of them. He stood tall not because he lacked doubt, but because he learned to walk alongside it. While critics debated the simplicity of his comedy, the people responded with love, laughter, and loyalty. From children giggling in front of old box TVs to adults reminiscing about the universal charm of Bean's antics, Rowan had achieved something far greater than ratings. He had built an emotional connection with the world. His character transcended culture, language, age, and class. No translator was needed. Mr. Bean was, and is, a human mirror, reflecting our most vulnerable and clumsy selves with a wink and a smile. And behind that mirror stood a man who spent his youth being mocked for those very traits. Isn't it incredible? The same expressions that brought him embarrassment in school would one day bring him admiration from presidents, actors, and millions of fans. Life came full circle not because it was easy, but because he refused to give up. When life closed one door with the harsh slam of rejection, Rowan built a whole new house, brick by brick, laugh by laugh, moment by moment. He didn't complain about the obstacles, he outgrew them. He didn't fight to be accepted. He became so original that the world had no choice but to welcome him. And in doing so, he proved a powerful truth. Success isn't about impressing others, it's about expressing yourself. Rowan's journey is a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary power lies in the most ordinary-seeming person. He wasn't loud. He wasn't polished. He wasn't born with the shine of stardom. But he had something deeper, a relentless heart, an unshakable belief, and a creative spirit that refused to be silenced. So if you ever feel like you're too quiet, too odd, too overlooked, remember Rowan Atkinson. Remember the boy with the stutter who couldn't speak without fear, and how that same boy became a global icon without needing to say a word. He didn't follow the crowd. He didn't chase the trends. He built a path so unique that the world followed him instead. That's not just success, that's legacy. And that legacy lives on, not just in the sketches of a man with a teddy bear, but in the hearts of all those who have ever felt different and dared to dream anyway. Rowan taught us that laughter is a language of its own, and that authenticity will always resonate louder than perfection. His story is not just one to be admired, it's one to be lived. Because within each of us is the power to turn our weaknesses into wonders, our pain into purpose, and our silence into symphonies. All we need is the courage to begin. And just like Rowan, we don't have to speak loudly to be heard, we just have to speak truthfully. That's how you turn rejection into a revolution. That's how you become unforgettable. That's how you become more than just a person. You become a symbol of what's possible when you never give up on being exactly who you are. And as Rowan Atkinson's journey unfolded, the magic was not merely in his ability to perform, but in the quiet resilience that echoed through every silent skit, every stumble that turned into laughter, and every expression that told 1,000 stories without uttering a single syllable. He didn't just act. He invited the world into a shared human experience, one where flaws were funny, imperfections were endearing, and failure was simply another step toward a beautifully unpredictable triumph. His ability to laugh at life's smallest inconveniences, whether it was a fly buzzing around his head, a faulty zipper, or a sandwich gone wrong, taught generations that humor doesn't have to be cruel, loud, or clever to be effective. It only needs to be real. And Rowan's comedy was as real as it gets. But what makes his success even more profound is how he carried it, with humility, grace, and a quiet dignity that never demanded attention but always commanded respect. While others chased the spotlight, Rowan remained grounded, often retreating from the glamour of fame, choosing instead to let his work speak. That decision, to let art shine above ego, is a masterclass in character. In a world that constantly rewards noise, Rowan proved that silence, when wielded with sincerity, can echo across the globe. Even after Mr. Bean reached global fame, Rowan didn't sit back in comfort. He continued to challenge himself, to take on roles that surprised and expanded his identity as an actor and as a human being. From the clumsy secret agent in Johnny English to emotionally rich roles in serious dramas, he refused to be boxed into a single character, proving that his talent was not limited to physical comedy but extended into the depths of human emotion and intellect. Yet, no matter the role, the world still saw in him the courage of a man who dared to show his true self and invite us to do the same. His legacy isn't just captured in reruns or stage performances, but in the courage he instilled in millions. People who once saw their own uniqueness as a burden, now wearing it with pride, inspired by the man who turned his insecurities into icons. Because Rowan's story whispers a deeper message into the hearts of those who feel too different to belong. That your quirks are not your downfall, they are your rise. And when the world tells you to blend in, Maybe your greatest gift is standing out, quietly, defiantly, like Rowan did. Not to be louder, but to be truer. What makes his rise even more inspiring is that he never let fame distort his values. He didn't chase headlines. He didn't crave controversy. He let his work carry the weight of his name. In a generation where success often arrives with arrogance, Rowan remained a man of integrity, allowing his humility to shine brighter than his celebrity. Even at the height of his fame, he never forgot the boy who once stammered in school, the young man told he'd never succeed in front of a camera. He carried that boy with him, not as a shadow, but as a foundation. He remembered the pain, the laughter, the struggle, and transformed all of it into art. In doing so, he became more than a performer. He became a vessel through which people around the world could find relief, joy, and most of all, hope. Hope that no matter how odd, quiet, or misfit you may feel, you are not alone. Hope that what makes you different today may be the very thing that defines your greatness tomorrow. And that is perhaps Rowan's greatest contribution. Not a show, not a character, not even a laugh, but a roadmap to becoming unshakably yourself in a world that often insists you should be someone else. He never needed applause to feel validated. He knew that true fulfillment comes from expressing your inner truth, not impressing the crowd. That's why his impact is so timeless, because it's rooted not in trends, but in truth. He didn't perform to be seen, he performed to connect. And every time Mr. Bean walked into a ridiculous situation and found a way to make us laugh, Rowan was subtly teaching us that life doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. Mistakes are funny. Flaws are human. Silence can be loud. And you as you are enough. Rowan Atkinson's story is not a fairy tale with glittering gates and red carpets. It's a rugged, real, and richly human journey of stumbling forward with faith in oneself. It's about facing doubt, embracing imperfection, and creating joy not despite your pain, but through it. And if there's one thing his life proves, it's this. You don't need to be loud to make noise in the world. You just need to be honest. Rowan didn't roar, he whispered. And the world leaned in, listened, and laughed. Not at him, but with him. And in that laughter, generations found courage to embrace who they are, quirks, flaws, and all, and perhaps even become their own version of Mr. Bean, silently resilient, joyfully awkward, and undeniably one of a kind.